10-year delay on agricultural. Basically, what it did was it prevented anyone
The exemptions.
from being able to exempt cannabis from a tax point of view for a minimum of 10 years. So there would be no agricultural write-offs, no medical write-offs, none of that kind of stuff. And why would you do that? Well, there's only one reason I could think of, and I went and actually spoke at the hearing and told them, you guys are setting this up to bankrupt the little guys so that you're prepping the industry for the multinational corporations. Pretty much exactly what I saw in that bill was pretty much what that Christopher Hurst had laid out only 2 weeks before. And everything that they've done since has shown me that they're not serious about helping patients. Well, then we found out who the big lobby firm is, the Washington Cannabis Business Association. And their main lobbyist, her name is Vicky Christopherson. And guess what her claim to fame is? She works for Merck. Not only does she work for Merck, she brags openly on her resume that she was the lobbyist that helped stop price caps from being implemented into law on pharmaceutical drugs, so they could raise the prices. That's what was her big proud moment. So this was the lobbyist who screwed over every pharmaceutical patient out there, and now she's in the marijuana side, screwing the medical patients out of that.
When I looked at the WACA priority list, Washington Cannabis Business Association, I noticed that their policy agenda in the last session corresponded frighteningly close to the bills that the Liquor Control Board was requesting the legislature pass. I mean, if you went down the line, and they were weird things like less transparency, I mean, not things that you would normally think are in the public interest or public safety interest. They were conspicuous, and I noticed how closely they matched. And I noticed that on the WACA list, the state 502ers were starting to fall off her roster. They were starting to fall off the priority of list of what's important. And I think of this because of what John said is the guys in the state will start to get crushed. And I think I would say looking at that, and I've also noticed corresponding to that is I noticed in Ann Rivers, although I noticed the revenue, who owns Cannabis Solutions, he gave like 5 maximum amount contributions under different company names, so he would be in state sort of when he's got businesses in Ukraine and stuff. But I noticed how the bigger money was starting to go and Rivers came as well. And I think I think of that because when I think of him, I think a lot of the state 502 interests that were working against patients, I think they've got a crush coming down the road from those people who have the capital to wait it out. They're in it for the long haul. And I don't think a lot of the 502 interests in the state I don't think they necessarily see it coming. You know what I mean? They're into their green rush. Yeah, I don't think they're watching that. They're seeing what they're doing. And I don't know if that creates common cause with patients. I'm always sort of wary because they think like they share common cause when it's in their interest, and then they'll turn that off really quick. The pesticide issue, though, I have to give some of them credit. Some of the retailers realized when that might be an issue. I noticed them coming right out and saying, producers have to do this. I think from the patient standpoint, I think they wanted to close collectives, get us on a list, and all the patient stuff, I said this earlier, I don't think they were really interested in that. I think that was all sales stuff. They wanted to say, oh, this is safe and tested. But, from a grower standpoint, a lot of them are inclined to spray a lot of nasty stuff on. If you lose a few pounds of that, especially if you're a struggling middle of the road or middle tier farmer, there's a strong temptation there, because that's, And so you mix that with the fact that they know they probably won't get tested and probably no one will find out because there's sort of this view that it's tested for that stuff. I just went into a store on the way down the highway and they said, oh, they test for all that. And if they spray pesticides on it, they have to list it on the label. And she told me all these things and none of them were true. And I don't think, so it kind of gave them the sales line that, yeah, it's safe and tested. Then they've got this perfect storm of this great economic temptation achieved, and the fact that there really isn't any testing. And I think that's going to have to change. The problem is that their pressure to change was the requirement that they were going to create this special category of medical supply. And it would be tested for pesticide, and it would be tested for fungicides, and it would be tested for heavy metals. And as far as I can tell, that was a requirement for having a medically endorsed store. And as far as I can tell, they're doing nothing to enforce it. And I think...
So do I understand well, there are no medically endorsed stores in Washington?
There are lots of medical endorsed stores. They are not...
don't have medical.
They are not meeting the requirements that the law... That was written in the law that they have to hire for.
They are not medically compliant.
That's
It is written into the law that one of the requirements for a medically endorsed store is that you have to offer medical products. There's other requirements. You have to have trained people and these other things. And the question we had is, if they don't offer that, can they lose all their endorsements? Now, from our privacy concern standpoint, I wrote a brief on this. In theory, they should be revoking those medical endorsements. And if they revoke those medical endorsements, there's nobody to register patients. Now, does that matter? Because a lot of patients aren't registered. I know very few. I know a lot of highly qualified patients.
There's almost 8,000 patients on.
Is that what it is now? Okay. So out of the state, I think there's 153. You can differ about that number. 8,000 registered. Their incentive basically is a sales tax deduction. You know, we still pay that excise tax. And other than that, I guess you do get some increased growing limits.
From what I've heard,
I don't know
there's a
anybody.
couple owners, I think there's maybe one, I can't remember offhand, but they were saying that most of the people going in to register don't buy any product, they're just registering so they can get 15 plants.
Yes.
Is that right?
What incentive does the state have to make sure that patients are registered? Did those patients pay a fee and get a card?
$1.
$1.
So the state has no incentive whatsoever to try to get these 552
No, and they
stores
tell-
to actually fulfill.
And I don't think they care.
They tell
I think the
patients,
whole medical system fails. I think they would be fine.
they tell patients that they can get they get a discount if they register. They tell them that to incentivize them, right? But it's only the sales tax that they get. They still have to pay the 37% excise tax that they don't even bring up when they're trying to tell you how to register.
Last time I bought aspirin, I don't remember paying taxes.
Well, that was our.
And they get,
Well, that
actually
was the argument.
patients,
And
patients are getting a better break when they go into the 502 stores because you flash your authorization and they give you 10%. I went one place, they gave me 20% off.
A lot of people believe that medical marijuana is false.
Right.
I'm from California originally, but politicians, they believe medical marijuana patients are just using an excuse to get stuff.
Well, as
But
a
in this
nurse,
day and age,
I know.
that's a lousy excuse.
I totally agree.
because there's too
I
much-
agree.
You know, I have a question. I mean, I'm obviously working for a county office, and I know that we have a moratorium on it here in Clark County. I mean, we're obviously talking about state production and everything else, but I mean, what was your experience been with county organizations? I mean, can we do, for example, if we were to, at the county level, lift the moratorium, I guess maybe put the requirement on local growers to.
Clark County will not do that. I have battled those commissioners.
And what's their resistance? What
There's two new
argument?
commissioners, I think.
Their argument is that they're going to get arrested because, and this is their advice from Chris Horn, their legal counsel. I've gone round and round with them. You can watch all the way from 2011 all the way up to just here a couple of weeks ago, where I talked to them about this stuff. And their response is that we will get arrested if we license anybody in our county.
Well, it just seems strange to me that a lot of our municipalities are allowing it.
Well, they give big money because there's that distribution. Right? That's why Battleground got so much money. None of the county sold it, so Battleground got that. And so the state gives them a kickback. You're probably maybe aware of that. Right? So all that went to Battleground, all that went to Vancouver. Right? And,
another side of the coin on this is the federal grants. And I've tried to get help from legislators, and they all say that they'll help, but they never do. I've tried to get help from various agencies, and they say they'll help, but they never do. And that is, how much does the state and all these different agencies and counties and cities, how much are the actual federal grant dollars that they're receiving to fight marijuana? There's all kinds of federal grants that go through the, we have education grants, transportation, you name it up and down the list, and all of these come with Schedule I enforcement language. And so
It's like a dog chasing its tail.
right. So the question almost has to be: is the amount of taxes that you could receive from 502, is that like not enough to make up for the federal dollars that you might lose? And they don't want to answer that question. And I've started trying to get answers through public records requests, but trying to chase who controls the federal dollars and where it all goes is hard. It's kind of hard, but over time I'll get there. But the incentive for the pharmaceutical companies is pretty obvious. The incentive for the law enforcement and other jurisdictions, while we see it, it's just not talked about enough. And I think it's because you might find out that those federal dollars might be more than what you're getting in the 502 taxes. Right. So if that's the case, then what's the incentive?
Well, I mean, the incentive from the county standpoint is that we're not hamstrung by the requirements that spend the dollars. I mean,
that's true.
If you actually can generate revenue at the local level, then I think there's a couple things come into play. Obviously, you're making your money on your business taxation, and you're making your money that you're going to get kicked back from the state as well. I mean, from a county perspective, and I tend to side with agriculture and farming. I support of the Farm Bureau and whatnot. I think we have a lot of very capable farming industry here that could potentially run with this, but it's just a matter of trying to get to the business.
This area makes great sense for it.
Right. And I could see, I hate to interrupt, but I could see us putting a requirement in there to say, we can do it, but we shouldn't be using these compounds and these substances in order to do that. That's why I was asking about testing, and I'm particularly interested in it. Because I think if we had some data to go on and say, look, these pesticides are creating these byproducts.
No data.
Yeah. So what would, I guess the question is are there labs that we could potentially
We have no labs that are set up at this point in time in the state that can test for
maybe
you.
not the state, but can we send it out and get, or are there tests?
Oh no, you go across state lines, you're looking at federal charges.
I know people that go to Oregon.
No, I'm just strictly talking about combusting of the.
You'd have to do that in this state, and you
Private.
Well, you could use the data from the pesticides that are being tested in other states and just use that as
But there-
consequential evidence.
That's what I'm curious if there's something we can leverage.
We could say in Colorado they've done this test.
As
Depends
a base.
on how you
Right.
work.
Well, these compounds there's been a ton of research done on them. We know
Right.
what they are and how to test for them. It's not that big of a deal from a technical viewpoint to set up that testing.
Right.
It's just where's the money going to come from?
What I've heard from a few test lab guys I've talked to, the closest lab that can do all the testing is in Colorado.
I guess because again, the big question becomes: is this going to completely destroy the supply for the medical industry? If they're saying, "Well, I can continue to do what I'm doing, I'll just sell it to the stores," as opposed to going through,
The best way to do it for medical is to let the patients grow their own, keep it out of the stores.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to give back
and
sharing.
allow multiple patients per provider.
Because there's people who just can't grow
Because
because
of-
of their patients and they want access to
Right.
narcotics. And if you share, you're a felon.
Right,
Yeah.
and
Right.
this nonsense that they put into play with the grows that if you're doing the collective, you have to actually literally participate in the collective. Some of these people, or the co-ops, some of these people just don't have the ability.
They're stuck in bed.
Yeah,
What can they do?
Our MS rate in the state is 3 times the national average.
Really?
Yeah,
I believe it.
it's 3 times the national average. And, you know, state legislators know that. The chance that those people are going to get out of bed, go down to their cooperative and help with gardening, I mean, why should they? Aren't we a better state than that?
Why? Here's the
I've
reason
never heard,
why.
I've never heard of AstraZeneca saying you need to come to the factory and produce your own pills.
Yeah.
Here's the reason why that Ann Rivers included that in the system. Her father and her brother were both medical. Her brother was supplying her father with medical cannabis. She didn't want her brother supplying her father. Her father passed away, unfortunately, and didn't. She got pretty upset with the idea that her brother was unrestricted in giving a controlled substance to her father, their father.
So a lot of this is personally based.
Absolutely.
Wow, I did not hear that story.
Well, you'd have to sit down one-on-one with her and have a chat with
I don't
her and
think I
hit
could
those
do that
buttons, and
without-
I tell you what,
I'd have to have
she
my
won't scream it
hands
at
tied
you.
behind my back.
She knows you're on my Facebook, so she doesn't
Oh, I know, eh?
Well, I mean, assuming this election goes through, I mean, this is a conversation that I want to have at the county level,
Are you running for county
county
office?
council.
Which,
It's on Milky seat, this district here in town. So
really?
basically from here up to county line
And
north.
your name
Roman,
again?
Battan.
Really?
Constituent.
I actually made it to the primary. I'm on the ballot, so
Awesome.
yeah, we're working